Hello and welcome back to my channel, Beyond the Render. Today we will be going over Speedtree and a beginner's tutorial, basically how to use Speedtree. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's get started. So this is Speedtree. This is basically the entire layout for Speedtree. We're going to go through each individual aspect of Speedtree step by step. But first thing we'll do is we'll open a pre-made template tree so we can go through each setting individually. Now, depending on which version of Speedtree you're using, it's going to have different features. It may look a little bit different, but ideally everything should work the same. They also have different versions, like ones for games, ones for film, and etc. So, but yeah, so here we go. So we have the tree already. Basically, as soon as we started open, you open the template and there you have a tree already. So let's begin with the first part. So we're going to go up here. This is the toolbar. This will have pretty much everything that you'll need to do everything within Speedtree. And then, so for instance, under render, we're currently in the standard view. So the standard view will show it rendered with the leaves, with the textures, with everything. So, and then with that, if you go into scribed, so scribed is going to show you the geometry. So it'll show you the density and things like that. So when eventually you get to building the trees from scratch, you'll be able to go in and make some changes and basically make sure that you have the proper amount of geometry for whatever the project it is that you're doing. And then under ambient occlusion, which is AO, this will basically show basically the shaded version of, you know, where the lights and the darks are. With some of the older versions, you actually have to calculate the ambient occlusion. So if you're using an older version and you don't see it, there's an option up here under tools where you can render ambient occlusion. But with this particular version, it's already done for us, so you don't really have to worry about that. I don't use albedo check, but we can click on it anyways. I'm not actually, I don't think I've ever used it for anything. Let's see what happens when it loads. Okay, so it's basically just removes everything from the background and shows it differently within here. So let's see. And then we'll go to subsurface check. I'm assuming this is probably for like subsurface scattering, which shows how light goes through the geometry. Let's see how that is. Yeah, so that basically shows you all the objects within your scene that have subsurface scattering. And then, yeah. So we won't go into any of these. We'll go into the more advanced things in a later video. But as far as that goes, that's as far as the view goes. And by the way, as far as maneuvering around through the scene, all I'm using is my middle mouse button to scroll and zoom in and out. And then if you use the left click, it will rotate within the space, and then right click will open a menu. And then if you hold the middle mouse button down, and it will basically pan the view. So you can rotate, pan, and then zoom, and then move your scene around. So pretty easy controls. Now under show, you can remove things within the scene that you may not want to see. So like, let's say you won't want to see it with leaves. So you can go in and make sure that all of your tree limbs and your branches and all the other things that you're building look the way you want them to. And that's what it would look like by removing the leaves. Let's see, let's remove fronds. Let's see what that does. Doesn't look like it removed anything. And then let's try branches. I have a feeling if we remove branches, it's going to remove everything because it's going to, I think it all thinks of them as branches. Yeah, that's what I figured. So we'll put all of this back. There you go. And we don't have bones or any of these other items in here inside this menu, but there are other things in here, you know, like the grid. If you don't want to show the grid, you can turn the grid off. If you don't want to see the height indicator, you can turn that off. And you can also turn off the ground plane if that's something you want to do. So, and the next one is the zoom. So basically, that's just allows you to zoom in and out. So that's pretty self-explanatory for that one. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this particular part. That one was super simple. And like I said, this area here is called the tree view within this area where the tree is. and let's go to the next one. So the next one's going to be forces. So under forces, you have a lot of forces in here. You can add direction, magnet, all these different ones. I'm not going to go into the forces right now. I'm just going to show you that they're there, because you have the opportunity to make all kinds of different things with this. I will be making a custom tree in a later video that basically shows how to use a lot of these forces, but they are there. So actually, you know what? We'll just do one just to test it. So we'll do a magnet. So when it puts the magnet force in, see, it's currently in rotation mode. You can right click and then go to manipulator, and then you can go to translate so that you can move the magnet around. So yeah, so you do that. Now with forces, you have to turn them on to make sure that they work with the tree that you have. So basically what you would need to do is under forces, let's see, usually you have to turn it on. I don't see, let's see, magnet forces. Let's go under the tree. Let's see. For some reason, it's not doing anything with the tree. Usually, when you get to put the magnet nearby, let's try turning up the force. Let's see if that does anything. Let's do that. So let's do the strength. Turn the strength up to like something super high. Yeah. So for some reason, it's not adding anything to. It's not adding anything to it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Usually you have to go in, you turn it on, and then usually it will affect all of the tree. So let's try this. Let's go under forces. Here we go. So we'll turn the magnet on. Sorry, that took a little bit more time than it should have. But yeah, so there you go. So now we have the magnet. So you basically have to tell it within the tree which part of the tree you want it to affect. I put the entire trunk, so that's why the magnet is infecting the entire trunk. So if you move it over, let's see, let's grab it. If we move it over this way, it's going to move the tree that way. If you move it up, it's going to go that way. And it's moving it all live too. So, and if you notice the computer starts running slow for some reason, I haven't gotten to it yet, but you do have the resolution settings over here, so you can turn the resolution down, so you can get it so that move it about a lot quicker than it's moving. But anyway, so we're gonna delete that force for now. Let's see, because we don't need that at the moment. But anyway, so yeah, that's the forces in there. Now collision objects, I'm not gonna go in too much in detail on this one right now, but collision objects is exactly what it says. So this would be if you don't want something to collide with it. So it's mainly for games, but you can use it for other things as well. But it will put, I'll go ahead and just open it. Let's see if we can just add a capsule. So basically it'll put this capsule here, and let's say you wanted to create some vines or something, and you don't want or not vines, I'm sorry. Let's say you put this into like Unreal Engine and you don't want anybody to run into this tree, like one of the characters you create. This barrier that you put here will keep your characters from running into it. And like I said, we'll go into more detail later when it comes to using Speedtree within Unreal Engine. If that is a video that you'd like to see, I'd be more than happy to make one. But yeah, so that's going to be what the collision objects is for. Now we have the wind settings up here. You have the ability to basically, we'll just turn it on for now so you can see what it does. So wind basically is what it says. It's wind. It'll add wind to your leaves. What the great thing about this is no matter which program you're using, whether it's Blender, whether it's Maya, Cinema 4D, whichever packages that you use, you can actually export the wind animation into basically as an alembic, and you can bring it into your scene with the animation. So it is pretty cool. Now with wind, you have this gauge over here. This basically shows you what the speed of the wind is going to be, and it also will have gusts. Gusting isn't currently turned on, but basically what gusting is where you'll have a little bit of wind and then you'll have a lot of wind come in and blow it. So let me just go ahead and turn that on as well. So if you see the gauge here, you'll have how often the gust will happen, which is gust frequency, and then the strength of the gust. So right now it's going to blow a little bit longer, a little bit faster, and then it's going to go back down again. That's basically what this is. So this one here is the strength of the wind, the frequency of how often the wind's going to go between gusts, and the normal wind speed, and then the actual gust strength itself. And then you have up here, so this is going to be the wind direction. So this will allow us to move the wind in whatever direction we want to move it in. So here, let's face it the other way. And then it's going to start blowing the tree in the opposite direction now. So that's pretty cool. So for now, we're going to turn both of those off. Now, under what is pretty cool is they have a wind wizard, which gives you the where you're able to select specific things you want the trees to do. So if you click on here, you can choose, the type of what your tree most likely resembles, and it'll kind of affect it to that effect. And then the generator wind ways and levels, so you can have it set them for you, or you can do it yourself, and then you can change what type of wind you want here. You can stormy, calm, etc. And then let's see, this says the leaves, fronds of the model are most like. So this basically is just a way to tweak the settings. Majority of the settings I like to do them myself, but you could use this as like a baseline so that when you're setting up the wind, you already have somewhere to start from. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the wind. There are other, like I said, there's quick keys here. You can remove certain things out of there if you'd like. There's edit wind properties, which we'll go over that in more detail another day. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the wind settings. Now you have light settings. So this is pretty cool. So this allows you to change the way you want to see the light within your scene. So first thing we can do is we can go under the presets and we can go to, let's say, golden hour. So it'll change the light on your shot so you can see how it's lit. And it also has a sun direction too. So if you notice in the top right hand corner up here, you have a lamp. That lamp is going to give you an idea of where the light is coming from. And let's see, you can go under presets again. You can do misty forest. You can do seaside. So you have all these different settings that are, it's pretty great how they do it, set it up that way. Let's see, you can show the quality of your shadows. I currently have it on very high quality, and then you also can render your ambient occlusion here as well if you don't already have one, which I do, because you can tell the difference between the leaves with and without an ambient occlusion. So, all right. So yeah, now we're onto resolution settings. Within the resolution settings, you can go through and change the resolution. So just to give you an idea, what I'll do first is I'll change the resolution like this so you can see what it looks like with the textures. So we'll change it to medium, low, and draft. So you can tell a huge difference when you do that, because it just, the detail, even though the textures look great, you can tell that the detail goes away. But a good way to see this is if you go under the scribed view, you'll be able to see the density of the geometry. So if we go from draft to low, medium, and then high, you can tell big time with high how much the geometry is there. I like to keep it on high. It really depends on how your computer runs. But for me, I'm able to run it on high without any problems. So let's change this back to the standard view. Okay. So these modes here, we'll go into these a little bit more when we actually start building the tree. I'm not going to go into it, but basically the generator is for the entire trunk itself, like the main parts. The nodes is when you want to select each one individually, and then freehand allows you to actually modify each node individually as well, or a main tree. Let's see. So, and then yeah, you have the ability to add things here. This is basically what you'll use when you're building a tree from scratch, which we are going to do after this. I'm going to show you each individual setting. We'll build just a basic tree based off of, an example tree or something like that. I'll pull in like a tree for us to build just for fun. But you have all those settings here. And like I said, when we go to build the tree from scratch, we'll put that in. And then you have visibility. So this allows you to hide certain things or focus on specific things. So you can hide, like I said, you can hide a specific set. So let's say we want to hide the trunk. Well, basically you can go in under visibility and you can go to hide. So basically that will hide the trunk. And if you want to bring it back, you can click on here. Now there are hotkeys, so you can use H, to hide and unhide. But for now, I'm just using right click. Gizmos, that's more for an advanced course. That's when you basically bring gizmos over that you've created or something that you may already have. But that would be definitely for something else because that's significantly more advanced. The seasons thing is really cool. So this will allow you to change the seasons of your tree. So it's currently in spring. Now, when you go down to like autumn, for instance, it's going to drop leaves. I do have dropped leaves on, so it's pretty cool. So if you go from spring to summer, here, let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see the tree better. So you can see what the leaves are doing. So you go to season, then you go to summer. The leaves are still changing, summer. And then once you get to autumn, you can see the leaves start getting really dark. And there we go. And here, now you notice that the leaves are starting to disappear. And that's because they're actually showing up on the ground. So this is a really cool setting if you want to use, if you want to show leaves on the ground. I believe there is a way to animate this as well, where you have the ability to go between these seasons from autumn to winter, where during the winter time there's going to be little to no leaves at all. But it's really cool. And this will give you an opportunity too, if you wanted to bring it in somewhere and add some snow, things like that, you could add it to this pre-existing geometry and you already have all the leaves. So it's pretty awesome. So we'll put this back. And we, like I said, we can go more into detail on all these other settings. If that's something you want, just let me know in the comments below and we'll go into more detail of that. So this again it looks like it's to create an ambient occlusion. So I'm going to go ahead and do this really quick. I'm going to show you it. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a difference in this shot, but I'm going to go ahead and remove the ambient occlusion. So we're going to go clear ambient occlusion. Can't tell if it did anything, but then we'll create an ambient occlusion. So we'll do that. Click. So basically it just gets darker and starts showing it more vibrant in the blacks and things like that. Now this collision, this keeps other leaves from colliding into each other. Like it says here, eliminate colliding leaf meshes are removed in the background according to the quality setting. So basically this can just, you can go, there's a setting you can put where it basically keeps the leaves from colliding with each other. And you could do that as well. But yeah, so that's going to be it for as far as this part of the interface goes. So now we're going to go to, let's see, now we're going to go over, we'll go ahead and go to the right side. And actually, you know what? We'll hold off on going over the materials and stuff like that, because when we go to build a new tree, we'll go through all of the settings. And basically this over here is just the properties table. This actually will give you a lot of the settings that we have up here, but you do have global properties and window properties. So you can change the layout, you can change the grid lines, brightness and contrast. You can basically go in and change all of the settings in here if that's something that you'd like to do. I won't mess with any of that stuff, so I don't mess with it. Again, this has Win Wizard, randomize, open new files, video tutorials, documentation, etc. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this menu here. If there's anything else you want to, like I said, we're going to go over a lot of these when we go to build the tree. But for now, we're going to hold off on that. We're going to stop here. And then I'm going to start back up with doing a tree from scratch. So here, let's go ahead and do that. So what we'll do is we'll close this tree. We're going to click no. And then we're going to start with blank. So basically, we're going to start with blank. And one thing I want to say from the beginning, from working with a lot of different versions of this, you want to make sure that you change the scale. I do know, I think it's Blender and a few other programs that I think they use centimeters or meters, but for me, I like to just build it in feet. If you prefer to do it a different way, that's okay. So what you can do is you go under, let's see, edit preferences, and you can go into tree window, and then you're going to change your scene unit from whatever you're using. I'm going to keep it as foot, but you can change it to whatever you're going to be using within your scene. Now I know older versions, I think before 9.0, they don't have this version under tree window. So there is another way to change your scene. And like I said, I would do this before you start building anything else in the scene. Otherwise, you might end up with some scaling issues. So you can go under edit tree window properties. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, it's not under there. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, scene unit conversion. Sorry, that's under the tools. So you go under here and then you can change it. So you can convert it from feet to centimeters, things like that. Whenever I send it to another application, that's where I actually will put it, because it'll actually ask you when you go to export it what your units of measure you're going to send it to. So that's usually where I do that. But everything for me is set correctly. So for now, what we're going to do is I'm going to, you know what? I'll just build a tree just from, we won't even try to do anything from a picture. Reference is important, especially when you're building trees, just so you have an idea of the type of tree you're going to build. But for this, we'll just go ahead and build one from scratch and just go from there. So the first thing I'm going to start with is a trunk. So basically the trunk starts at 25 feet. And honestly, we can leave it at 25 feet. That's not a problem. And the first thing also I like to do once I create a tree is I'm going to go into the main tree node here. And I'm going to change the main tree to quads. Now for me, it's because I work with a lot of quads. A lot of times, I believe if you work with Unreal Engine, you're going to want to use probably triangles, which is totally fine. But for me, with a lot of the programs that I use, I don't use triangles. I do everything with quads. So that's where you'll change it at. And again, here, I'll show you. You'll click on tree, and then under geometry, I change it from triangles to quads. And that's all I change within here. I don't change anything else in here. So again, we'll click back on the trunk here. So now we have the settings window. We're currently under generator. We have all of these different things, which we're going to go into each step by step. So for when I'm building trunks, I like to keep it at, you can do interval or you can do absolute. I'm just going to leave everything at the some of the settings that are the same, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So now we'll go through each one of these individually. So we'll click under generation. So under generation, you have number. Number is going to increase the number of trunks. And as you can see, they're all going to pretty much grow right on top of each other. But you can choose to jumble them up a little bit. Let's see. And then you can sweep, which all twists it. And then you have roll, which basically rotates it. But still, they're all bunched together. You would have to basically change the position. So I don't want to skip too many settings, but you would go down here and click position, and you can position them where you want them to go. Now you can do this individually, but for now I'm going to just show you as the way it is now, and then I can show you how to do the positioning later. So for now we're just going to keep the trunk at 1, and then we're going to put all of these settings back to where they were. Put these back to 0. Put back to 0. Yeah. So, but this is basically, this will mainly only works, I believe, if you have multiple. So we're not going to do anything else with this particular area. Now you have boundaries. So boundaries, you can go first, second. Boundaries, you won't need this until you actually start putting other branches or attaching other things to it. We'll go over that and once we start adding other branches. Then you have rotation. This basically just rotates where your trunk is. You can put it here, you can put it there. I'm actually going to just leave it where it is. I'm going to put that position back at 0. Let's see, 0. Yeah, there we go. And then you have size scaler. So this allows you to change the size of your tree as well. So this would be the entire scale of the tree. I'm going to leave the tree at 25 feet because it's already pretty tall. Then you have extend to parent. This is something you'll want to change once you start actually using branches and leaves. This basically just keeps things from colliding. I believe that's what this is for. At least that's what I've been using it for. But anyway, so let's go to spine. Under spine, you can also change the length of the tree here. And then you can also add other things in here. And like I said, most of these settings are going to be for when you start actually using, adding extra things to it, like branches. But for now, these are all the settings that you'll have. And we'll go into these once we actually start adding more branches to it. You have forces. This is what I was talking about. We don't currently have any forces, so we'll leave this the way it is. All right, so if you go under shape, I don't do anything with shape. You can if you'd like, but I don't mess with that. And then under skin, so this would be the actual radius, which would be the radius of the tree itself. So you can go in here to increase the radius. I'm not sure why there's not a scroll wheel here. There should be. There's usually a scroll here. Let me try. Click 3. Yeah, there's usually a scroll wheel, so I don't know if there's a glitch somewhere or something happened. But anyways, so yeah, so this basically increases the thickness of the tree. So for now, I'm just going to put this down to 2 because that's a little bit too big. Now, what's pretty cool is you have this option here to do what's called variants, where if you want to, like, let's say you have multiple branches, you can change the variance of the branches where it'll just make it so that not every branch is the same or the same size. And then you can also use this little icon here if you want to adjust the radius up and down the tree. So for instance, let me move this over here. If you want the bottom to be, or if you want the bottom to be bigger and you want the top to be just a little bit thicker, you can do that. And then you can also double click within the curve editor here, and you can change it. Like, let's say if we want the middle to be a little bit smaller and then have the top be a little bit bigger, so it kind of adds to that look of it being looking a little bit better. All right, so we'll take care of that. And then let's see, spread. Yeah, so we have all these settings in here. We don't really need these as of yet, so we'll go under displacement. We don't have a displacement yet. We'll add something like that later. And then you have material. So since we're at material, I'll go ahead and add a material. The way to add a material is you'll basically just click on the object that you want to add the material to, and then we're going to go over here to the material window, and under materials we're going to click add material, which is right up here, managing materials. So you'll click this, we'll add a new material. So we'll go ahead and just add, we'll just call it bark01. So that'll be our bark material, which we can also use for our branches, and we'll click OK. So once we've done that, it'll actually start opening up all of these textures for us. And then what we'll do is we're going to click on the color and we'll add a texture in. So it will take us basically to all the pre-made ones that are inside of Speedtree. If you'd like to know how to add your own branches or your own textures into Speedtree, just let me know and I'll create a video for that as well. So for now, all I'm going to do is collect this sleeve. What it's going to do, and I'll wait for it to show it, but I'm going to click open. Now it's going to say maps for other materials. So basically it knows that I have other materials off to the right. So it's going to autofill those materials. And you know what? I just realized I made a goof. We are not doing leaves, we are doing bark, and I just named bark trees. So the good news is we can go in and we can fix that. So here, just to make it easier, let's go back into here and we will remove this completely and click OK. And let's do that again. So we have a leaf for bark instead of actual bark. So let's do that again. Double click bark 01, and let's actually add the bark material this time. That's awesome. So here we go. So let's go under bark, and then we will add the sample bark, and then click open, and then it will add all those materials. And now we actually have bark this time. Now, it's not going to show up on the material yet. We actually have to, you can drag and drop it into the material up here. So I'm going to grab this little hand right here, and then I'm going to drag it onto the tree. And then now, as you can see, we have bark on the tree. And then also, if you notice under materials, it put in the color, the normal, the glossiness, and let's see what else, and the ambient occlusion. If you have any of the other ones, you can put those in as well. Opacity would be more for leaves and things like that. And we don't really need to mess with any of these other settings as of yet. We're not going to work with the materials or meshes. We'll do that in a more advanced video to go over how to do your own custom leaves and things like that. All right, so now we have the bark, the material. And actually, before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and do displacement. We'll click on displacement. We haven't added the displacement yet, so what we'll do is under displacements, we'll go into here and add new, and then we'll do bark. Let's see, displacement 0, 1, and then we'll click OK. And then we will search for a displacement under here, under file. And let's see, where's the displacement? Here it is. So basically, I'll show you what the displacement does, but we'll click open and it'll automatically put the displacement texture in here. So, and then it's not gonna be there yet because we haven't added it to it. So we're gonna drag it. So we're gonna grab it and then we're gonna drag it onto our tree. And as you can see, it puffed it out just a little bit. So let me see if there's a way to turn it off and on so you can't see the displacement. All right, let's turn this to 0. See if you can see it. Did that do anything? No, it did not. Okay. Well, anyways, we're about to go in and change some of the settings anyways. So under displacement, you have the displacement scale. So I'm not sure what's going on here with this. It's always when you're trying to show stuff, it doesn't really go. Okay, so anyways, we'll go into radial amount and scroll this a little bit. So this will kind of, as you can see, this will kind of puff the tree a little bit. We'll do that. Actually, you know what? Let's do a variance for this one. So we'll click this. So it just varies on where the radial amount is going to be. And then we can go under length amount. Let's see what that does. It doesn't do very much that we can see. So we'll just leave that. And then you can change the UV and scale of it. I'm not going to mess with any of that. Under fine adjustments, you can do something where it kind of, as you can see a little bit, where it starts sinking in certain areas. You can do that as well. And we'll do a variance for this one as well, so that it just varies where it's at. Now, this is something else you can do. You can do twisting. I'm not really going to mess with that because I don't. We can do that later. You have flares. You can do radius flares. So if you see down here, you have flare under displacement. So if you know how a lot of the trees, they have the flare that comes out. In more advanced videos, I'll show roots and things like that. So here we'll just do a little bit of a tree flare. We'll just do something like that. I think that's good. And then we'll add a little bit of noise to it, so it looks a little more real. And then you can adjust the height. So I'll leave that alone. Let's see, pitch, angle. Yeah, so that's pretty good for now. I mean, it's, it's just a basic tree. Let's go into, let's see. Now we're going to go back to the material. We have the bark. So now we can go into segments. So segments is going to be basically your how much geometry, excuse me. I'm having a brain fart. Basically, it's just going to, the density of the geometry is basically what it is. So right now it looks like this. So if you want, you can go under length, and let's change it to 30. And then let's change the radial to 20. I'll try to keep them even the best that I can. But you have a tremendous amount of control. These are just all depending on the purpose of what you're trying to do. You can use LOD if you want, which depends on when you start using a lot of trees, basically shows the trees in the distance or closer, which ones are, you know, which ones will show up. But this density is going to be important when you start getting into branches, because otherwise you'll start seeing, you know, jagged edges and things like that, which you don't want to see. So the more detail you have, and what's great is you can actually change where you want the density of your tree. So like, for instance, if you're not going to see a majority of the density at the top, you can put the density down here and save yourself on your density up here. So for instance, if you go like this and you click this bar and I move it down, it's going to put a majority of the density at the top. But if you go the other way, it's going to put a majority of the density. See how it does that? So you can change the density from the top and the bottom. So if you wanted to do it that way, you can. Let's see. But yeah, this basically gives you control on where you want the geometry to be. And you can push it up really high, you can push it up really low. And then you could do the same thing with radial, where you can move it up or down. So if you want more density at the top, or if you want more density at the bottom, you can do that as well. So for now, I'm just going to leave them at the setting that they were, which I believe it was something like, it was like right about there. So we'll just leave it there. Alrighty. And then hand drawn, like I said, we'll go into more detail about that later. That just allows you to hand draw branches, but we're going to do procedural branches for now. So now once we have the trunk, we can start going into actually generating branches. So for now, what we'll do is we're going to go under add, and we're going to under trunks, or excuse me, branches, and then we'll do bifurcating for now. When I go into showing a more advanced tree, we'll do each branch individually, but for now we'll just do bifurcating. So basically what that does is it creates a bunch of branches. So we get this funky looking tree here. So now what we can do is we can go under the generator like before, and now you have the threshold. So the threshold that you do will basically determine how many branches is going to show up. So I'm going to put it to 50, and then you can change the spacing of how many you want there to be. And then there's the balance, locality, things like that. And then this is what I was talking about. So let's say you don't want any of the branches at the lower half. That's where you'll change the first. So if you change first to up like that, it won't have any, you know, within that area. So there won't be any down here. So let's change this to that, and then we'll keep that last. And then rotation. So we don't want to do that. We want to, let's see if we can change it. No, let's do the randomization. Let's see if we can do that. Let's see if that variance changes it. Yeah, so we can do this. So we can vary where the branches are. I'm fine with the position. So we'll do size scaler. I actually want to adjust the radius of them because they're a little bit thick. So for now, I'm gonna leave them as they are, and then we'll change that in the spine settings. So the length of them, they're a little bit long. Let's go back to generate, and let's change let's see, the size of them a little bit. Let's just bring them down just a little bit. And then let's go under, let's see. Yeah, so you can adjust it here. Those are fine. I do want to adjust the radius though, just a little bit. We don't want the radius to be bigger. Let's put that down. Let's see, shape scale. We'll leave that too. Start angle. So you can change the start angle of this. You can do start roll, alignment. You can do all these different things. There's so much stuff you can do with these. So let's see. Gravity. You can choose how much the gravity wants to affect the branches. I'm going to leave that right where it was. You can prune. There's all kinds of cool different things you can do. Let's see. Let's go to skin. And this is where we're going to change the radius. Let's turn this up a little bit. Let's see if we can radius of the parent. So we'll try go down just a little bit with this. Let's do 0.6. Yeah, there we go. So, and then we'll leave the rest of the settings the same. Now it's going to add the displacement. I believe it parents the displacement to the other materials. So let's go back to standard so you can see it that way. So, like I said, I know it's not a realistic looking tree, but right now we're just going through the settings. The materials are already going to be there. Now I do want to add a few segments to these branches because they look a little bit jagged in some of the edges. So like if we click on the branches and we go back to scribed, there's not a lot of geometry on those. So we're going to up those up just a little bit. I'll just go to 30 and then change the radius to 20. I think that's good enough for now. It might be a little bit too dense for us depending on what you're using it for, like if it's for games or something like that. And you can see how many polygons it's created over here in the total. So when I have it selected, it's going to show you the total. But if you click off of it, it's going to show you the total quads and geometry. And actually, before I go any further, I forgot to mention, there's actually a way to do multiple views for within Speedtree. If you right click within the scene and you go to, where is it? Show, or not show, window, you can change the layout to show 4. So like your traditional top-down view, front view, and if you double click the center button, it will take you to whichever one your mouse is in. And just like that, yeah. So that's something fun that you can do if you're wanting to be able to see, you know, look at it from the side, things like that. And I forgot to mention that you can change the view within the pane. And then another thing too is, let's say you get really far away or you lose your shot and you can't see it anymore and you can't figure it out. If you just double click in the viewer, it will center it back. So that's a good feature to have. That way you can see, you know, what's going on with your tree. All right. So now we have that. We're going to select the branches, and then now we're going to create a whole nother set of branches. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under branches. We'll do bifurcating again. And now those branches are going to have branches. See? So I'm going to have it add a few more branches than what's there. So what we'll do is we'll go under, let's see, I think we want to go under generate. We're going to add more to the threshold. Go the other way. Let's see. Let me see. Let's go back. Bifurcating. Let's see. Spine. Skin. Let's see. Generate. Balance. Locality. Yeah, you can change the balance. You can add more to it. The spacing. Let's see. There we go. That's what we wanted. So we can add a few more branches in there. Let's do that, but let's do this variance. So it changes a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So we have that. Let's put it back on the standard mode. Yeah, now so I have this goofy looking tree that looks very symmetrical. A lot of the stuff looks the same, but that's okay. Like I said, you could go in and randomize a lot of the settings. And actually, let's take this trunk and we're going to add a cap. So to add a cap, we'll go under add cap. And basically that caps it off. You can add a texture to that. I'm not going to do that right now, but we'll just put a cap at the top so there's not a hole there. So now what we'll do is we'll take our second set of branches and then we'll create even more branches. So this time we'll do branches and then let's see what happens if we do twigs. I don't like that. Yeah, so let's get rid of those twigs. Let's try that again and we'll go with this, add branches, and then bifurcating again. So there we go. So with this set, I'm actually going to make these a little bit longer. So we'll go under spine, and then we're going to change the length. of them a little bit, like this. And then I'm also going to decrease the radius. So the radius is going to be under skin. So we're going to reduce the radius of the parent. So let's go, we'll do, let's see, 0.5, I think it's good. Yeah, there we go. And then after we do that, let's add a little bit of curl to them as well. So if you want, you can go under, let's see, I believe it's spine. And then you can go curl or path. Let's see, or jink, which makes that weird like L shape. But what we could do is we can go under forces, I believe. Let's see. There's an area to add some gravity. I believe it was under spine. Let's see. Gravity. We will find it. Generator, skin, blend. I know it's in here somewhere. Displacement, maybe? No. I don't know. My brain's not working so well right now. Oh, here it is. Gravity. So we'll add a little bit of gravity to the leaves. So let's put like 0.3. 0.2. There we go. Make little sad leaves. And then we'll do one more set of leaves after that. And you can name these to keep them in order so you know what's what. It's a lot better a lot of times if you name your branches so you know exactly where and what your branches are doing. So once we do that, we'll just select these branches one more time, and then we'll click add branches and then bifurcating again. And then let's give those a little bit of gravity as well. We'll do 0.1 on these so that's not as much. There we go. So there we go. We have this very dead, no leaves tree. So, alrighty. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding a set of leaves to each one of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to go under the first one. We're not going to add any leaves to that. Let's see the second one. We're not going to add any leaves to that. But the third one, we'll add some leaves to that. So we'll go into batched leaf. You can go under here as well under leaves, alternating opposite. But what I like to do is I'll just go under batched leaves and it adds a bunch of leaves here. Now this was this time I was telling you when I like to go under, I believe it's general generator, set this to any, it adds a lot more. And then now we'll go back and add a lot more of these leaves. Now the reason it shows these squares is because there's no texture yet. So for now, we're going to go in and increase the number. Let's do a pretty decent amount. We'll just do 6. I'll do 6 because we have a multiple sets of leaves that we can add these to. Excuse me. So I'm going to add, well, I'll just do 7. Why not? And then you can jumble them up a little bit. Let's see. You can add boundaries, you can do rotation, position. You can do all these different settings, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm going to leave it at the settings that it is right now, but you do have the ability to set every parameter within the leaves. And like I said, we can do a much more advanced tree in another time. You know, we can do vines and bushes and all kinds of different things. But for now, we're just going to leave it the way it is. So let's see. After we do that, let's go ahead and add a texture to it just so we have one. So now we'll go back to materials and we're going to add another material up here in the top right hand corner. And then we're going to go to add new, and then we'll just call this leaves 01. Oops. 01. And then now this time we're going to go in and actually add the leaf texture this time instead of what we did last time. So now we'll go under leaves. We'll do leave front 1. And then we'll click open. Since we already had it previously, it doesn't look like it's going to open them all this time. So we'll actually need to go in and, oh, it's because I put it under subsurface. Let's get rid of that. So let's delete that out of there. Let's see. Hold on, sorry. We put it in the wrong location. That's why it's like, wait, what? Cancel. So yeah, let's go back up to color. click the leaf, click open, and then we'll add it to the slots. So it should have removed it out of, yeah, so it fixed it, the one in subsurface. So now it added the leaves. So now we'll take the leaves that we just added to this. Now I like to click on two-sided. So when you do that, it's going to make two-sided leaves. And then you'll drag them into the leaves. There we go, just like that. I think I missed. Let's try that again. So we'll take the leaves, put it right there. There, now we have leaves, see? Now, let's see. All right, so now that we have those leaves, let's see, we should probably increase the leaves just a little bit. I feel like there's still not enough. Let's add a little bit more. Yeah. And then, let's see, yeah. So now we'll go to this next set of leaves that we have, and we're gonna go, or the next set of branches, and we're gonna add batch leaf again. And this, we're gonna crank this one up to, let's say 5. We're gonna jumble it up a little bit, do some roll. We can do some rotation. We can vary the size of the leaves too, if we want. And then we'll grab the leaves again and drag those on top of there as well. So now we have more leaves. So now we have a goofy tree with leaves on it. And then, like I said, we can go back. And if we add a little bit more geometry too to the branches themselves, I believe it will allow a little bit more density of leaves. So let's go back to the branches themselves. So we'll go under these branches and let's go under our segments. And let's add just a little bit to these because these are so tiny. Let's just do 20 and 10. I think that should be good. And then we'll do that to the other one as well. Let's go in here. Let's do 20. And then let's do 10. That'll just add a little bit more geometry to it. Now, obviously, that makes it more dense, but I like to have a little bit of density to it. So let's see. Let's go back to the batch leaves. Let's add a little bit more leaves. Let's just do 15. And then we'll go to the top and we'll do, let's say 10. There we go. Now, it is looking a little bit jumbled up over here, so I think I'm going to see if there's a way to randomize these so they don't look so the way they look. So let's do jumble a little bit more so it's not so... There we go. Roll. Let's do a variance on rotation. Let's do a variance on position. And then let's see, let's do sync. We don't need it. There we go, just a little bit. I think we're good. I mean, it's going to be really far away, so it's not going to be that noticeable. But anyways, that's basically it as far as a tree goes. I mean, there's a lot of other settings that you could do. You can add a lot more leaves. You can, different types of leaves, different positions. You can add that stuff individually. You know, like you could go in and take this branch, for instance, and there are settings in here so you can actually change the angle. So you can click on this and you can change the entire angle of the branches and just pull this down a little bit. You know, there's all kinds of different things you can do. And like I said, if you want a more advanced version of Speedtree, I'm actually working on a project right now. And I'm going to use a reference of a tree and build it from scratch. And it's going to have like twisted vines or twisted branches around it. I haven't seen a tutorial yet for that. I do know there's a lot of tutorials already out for Speedtree. But I just wanted to give my own take on Speedtree. Because I think... you know, I enjoy this kind of stuff and I think it's fun and I always want to teach people and do the best that I can. So, but yeah, so we could always just turn the wind on too, just for fun. You know, get the wind going with the tree. Now, obviously, a tree doesn't normally blow like that. And you know what? I'll actually show you while we're doing this. So if you go under, if you click the trunk and you go under forces, actually, I take that back. You're going to go under wind and edit wind properties. And then you're going to go under branch motion. So under branch motion, I'm going to click, let's see, for this branch, let's see if it allows me to change the settings for this force specifically. I'm going to see if there's a way to keep the wind from affecting this branch specifically. So let's go, let's see, wind, edit wind properties. Actually, sorry, let me go back to that. So wind, edit selected objects wind properties. So there we go. So let's see if we can turn that to 0 and see if it shouldn't affect the, let's see if that helped. Nope, it's still using it. So let's change that back to 1. So there is a way to do it. So let me see, let's click this. Let's go to wind, edit wind properties, and then go to leaf. Let's go to branch motion. Let's see. Branch motion, here we go. So let's go to disabled. Basically what that does is that locked that position right there where just the leaves are currently getting affected by the wind. Now there is a way, and I will do a more deep dive into it later to show you exactly which level does what, where we can probably add turbulence to the branches as well. Because obviously not just the leaves are going to move, you're going to need the branches to move a little bit too. But for now, I have it shut off for this. So let's see, maybe we can figure it out really quick and see if we can turn the forces off for this branch. So if we click this, here, we'll go back under, here, let's do this. Let's go under, back to the wind properties. Let's change the wind properties to back to enabled. And then let's go back into the trunk and let's see what happens if we go under forces and then change that force to allow. So if we click that off, let's see if it still moves the tree. Let's see. Yeah, it's still affecting the tree completely. So let's see. There has to be a way to turn it off, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's been a little while since I've messed with it. Let's see. Strength 0, chance 0. Yeah, I'll look into it. But anyways, and there you have it. We've just created our first tree in Speedtree. If you found this guide helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more 3D content. Drop any questions you have in the comments and I'll be happy to help. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.